This is the Fifth Estate Winning Headlines, your media police post. In this segment, we summarize the headlines that you may have missed this morning, but we also take a look at the political pieces that we call cartoons in this country. Today is the 24th of November 2021, and I am Serbia.
I am DK.
I am CS. In the headlines, in case you missed them, Daily Nation, Mudavadi factor in Ruto Raila fallout. In the Standard, Iron Ladies leads Mount Kenya in deal with Oka Chiefs. And in the Star, fresh twist as Oka plots new merger. People Daily, damn scandal. Italian firm wants 80 billion shillings. Interesting headlines. DK, why don't you kick us off?
Definitely. And today I want to just waste my time and energy on these Oka principles because they've taken space in two of the headlines. And I want to give them a lesson from Raila Odinga on how to play the politics of long distance. But before I do that, did you know that Musalia Mudavadi was at one point the fastest boy in high school here in Kenya?
No,
In fact, this guy held the national record for 100 meters for a very long time. He is said to have been so fast and strong that they used to call him Phantom when he was playing rugby for Mean Machine RFC here in Nairobi. And the question maybe we need to ask today is, why is this phantom not phantoming anymore in politics today? If you look at the politics of Musalia Mudavadi and OKA in general, they are basically playing short distance politics, sprint politics, or in other words, 100-meter politics. It is all about speed, but there is no strategy. On the other hand, if you look at the politics of Raila, he is playing long-distance politics. Raila understands that that politics is a long game. It is a marathon. It is about pacing and endurance.
True.
Allow me to explain this one. In 2002, Musalia Mudavadi used short-distance politics to accept the position of vice president from Mzee Moi for a quick 2 months. The position of VP prevented Musalia from joining the winning team, which was the opposition, and he ended up losing his Sabatia seat to Moses Akaranga. In 2002, when Raila said Kibaki tosha, he was playing long-distance politics. He knew that if he supported the 71-year-old Kibaki then, Kibaki would make him president when he retired. But again, Raila became impatient and ran against Kibaki in 2007. And that is how he upset his fortunes with Kibaki. In 2013, Musalia was again tricked by Mzee Kibaki using short-distance politics. In a span of just 24 hours, Uhuru Kenyatta had surrendered his presidential candidacy to Musalia, then took it back and called Musalia Madimoni. This short-distance politics is what prevented Musalia from joining Raila in 2013, and it allowed Uhuru Kenyatta to win round 1. In 2018, Raila was using long-distance politics when he did the handshake with Uhuru. He knew that if he supported this man, Uhuru Kenyatta, in these last 5 years of his reign, Uhuru will make him president in 2022, and that is a fact. That is why Raila betrayed you, Oka Brotherhood, and went to Uhuru Kenyatta. Tear gas Mondays were nothing but long-distance politics. Raila knew he would use them in the negotiation for a handshake if he lost in 2017, and he did. The historical lesson for Musalia Mudavadi here and his Oka brothers is that short distance politics will only make you a political fool. To become a political legend like Raila, you must adopt long distance politics. Now the question is, will Musalia Mudavadi and his Oka brothers vacate their 100-meter short distance politics? Or better asked, who among you is willing to betray the pack of losers and support Raila Odinga in 2022? asking this question because the man who supports Raila in 2022 will become president in 2027.
For sure.
And that man will be playing long-distance politics.
Yes.
That's how it is. And that's the end of the story.
Distance politics, the way to go.
The way to go. I mean, even, who is this guy? Kipchoge had to dump short distance races to become a marathoner, and that's why he's a legend today.
So, today I would like to talk about the politics of handouts. Between Baba and Ruto, who is giving a handout to Kenyans? Ruto the other day called Raila 6,000 a handout. But because Ruto has a PhD in plant science, we will teach him what 6K is all about. Baba's 6K stimulus is a structured poverty eradication plan that is set to uplift families living in hardcore poverty.
Yeah.
We are talking about sufferers that make up 26% of Kenya who live way below the poverty line. And now Baba wants to give them 5% of our budget. And what is wrong with that? Actually, Raila is just expanding what already exists. For 7 years now, our government has been running a cash transfer program called Inua Jamii. So when Ruto trashes the idea of a transfer program, you are left to wonder if he even knows what has been happening in government for the past 8 years. Anyway, how will he know if he already absconded duty and now is left to roam from county to county dishing logistical funds? Ruto has in the past 1 month attended 135 rallies, dishing millions randomly to border riders, mama mbogas, and any other trader he finds on the road. Remember, these people already have an income. So if Ruto is not implementing a structured policy welfare plan, what is he doing then? Isn't he propagating a handout culture?
Yes.
As he gives money to people who already have an income, why then say that Raila giving an opportunity to people who don't have a meal, leave alone an income, is an insult? So it's an insult to give 6,000 to 2 million households who do not have an income and are hungry, but it's called empowerment when he gives millions of shillings to ladies of the night in Ukambani. But perhaps in light of it all, the most important question is this. Where does all this money for Ruto's handouts come from? 5 million shillings in each rally for the past 8 years is not a joke. This is an astronomical amount of money. Is he telling us that all of this is being funded from his bank account and from his salary as deputy president and selling eggs? Is he now telling us that his personal bank account will replace the consolidated fund at the Central Bank of Kenya? If this is the direction he wants to take us, history bears witness that this is exactly what Mobutu Sese Seko did when you put the national revenue of DRC in his personal bank account and have it dispersed from there. History also tells us that this is why the development of DRC has not yet joined the rest of the world in this new millennium. If Ruto wants to be the one to decide how money will be disbursed to the rest from his personal bank account, he should also tell us early enough in fairness between Oscar Sudi and Rashid Echesa, who will be the treasurer. Hear me out. There is nothing wrong in people's empowerment, but you need to ask yourself, is this empowerment method you're choosing sustainable, transparent? Are the source of funds accountable? Is the criteria for choosing beneficiaries equitable and fair? What's your criteria for deciding who will get a wheelbarrow or water tank? Or how many youths will share one lorry in Kondele? And why are you not giving that lorry to the ladies of the night in Ukambani? And that is why we are saying Ruto's method is just populist. In fact, the only standard that Ruto's method of people's empowerment is based on is that he should be the only person who will decide who is getting the 100 shillings versus who is getting the 1 million shillings and where and how they are getting this money. And this can only happen if he becomes president. Basically, he wants to be the handout Santa Claus. And that is why, ladies and gentlemen, we submit to you that if you take a step back, Ruto's plan is entirely based on his cult of personality. Ni yeye msema yote, mjua yote, na mfanya yote. And if we are not careful, we will vote in someone with a messianic complex. And it is this egoism that will diminish and destroy all the gains this country has achieved.
Sabia, you have just taken us to church, and I say, preach.
And I feel like, I mean, it's unfair, man, to include people like Oscar Sudi in certain conversations. I feel them, I mean, I don't know. But then again, this whole thing reminded me of a story that is told of Saddam Hussein. Apparently, he used to go and go to poor people's houses, then go straight to the fridge and give them food. And the idea here was to appear like the only man who could solve problems, including hunger. And that is what Ruto is doing by giving handouts to Kenyans, showing that he's the Santa Claus, you said?
The Messiah.
Basically, he's in the same WhatsApp with other tyrants. Now, walivonena wahenga kutangulia sio kufika. This simple but powerful saying is usually illustrated by the classic tale of the hare and the tortoise. The tortoise was slow, but sure and deliberate.
Yes.
Professor Mutahi Ngunyi has taught us that this is called the power of slow. The opposite is what we see in the indecent haste of the hare, having immense pride in its speed and the fact that he bolted very fast from the starting line. He took it for granted that his win would be a sure thing. And because of this, the hare was consumed by his own hubris, and in the end, he lost the race. William Ruto, like the hare, bolted from the starting line haraka upesi. In fact, he even started running 4 years before the firing gun was shot. Now, as much as Ruto would now like to conveniently have us believe that he has been inspecting projects and not campaigning for the last 4 years, we nonetheless, having eyes, perceive as follows. Ruto has had an immense advantage because he has been running alone. He started the race when there was no one to race with. This is why he's ahead in various polls, even fake ones. But he will eventually lose despite the initial advantage. We perceive that an engineered runoff is at play. And we asserted as much 2 weeks ago. This week, we would like to further propose that Mzee Moi's 1992 election strategy is being deployed on Gema in order to achieve this engineered runoff. Now, in 1992, initially, the clear favorite to win was Matiba. Moi, however, split the 60% opposition vote bloc. If Matiba had run against Moi, he would have won. But with Kibaki and Jaramogi in the mix, this fragmented the 60% opposition bloc. Because they were divided, they all faltered against Mzee Moi's 36%. In fact, a united Gema under Kibaki and Matiba with a potential combined 46% would have trounced Moi. But also, if Matiba and Jaramogi had remained united on one Ford ticket, their combined 43% would also have trounced Moi. Moi deployed the age-old strategy of divide and conquer. If there was a runoff scenario in 1992, let's just imagine, this would have given an opportunity for opposition candidates to unite against the incumbent Moi. Today, the prospect of an engineered runoff means that somebody somewhere was a good student of Moi, and that good student also now recognizes the advantage presented by the new constitution. That good student of Moi school of politics is likely engineering the runoff to unite opposition in a runoff scenario against the incumbent, who in 2022 will be Ruto. We have said that for Ruto to win, he will need a Gema running mate. But that is not enough. He will also need at least 90% of the Gema vote basket. He started off well. But currently, Baba has hived off more than 15% of that percentage. And that number is growing because Baba is gaining ground. A September poll showed that Ruto had 64%, while last week's Tifa poll showed that he was at 53%. Even if we give Ruto a median of 60%, the bad news for him is that if the headlines in the Standard and the Star are anything to go by, if Oka and the Mount Kenya Alliance come together, they will also hive off a big chunk from Ruto's remaining 60%. If we then step back and take stock from a global view, what this means is this. Raila, with his traditional national support base of 44%, only needs a small percentage of Gema. And he already has it, even without picking a Gema running mate. If he picks Lee Kinanjui or Peter Kenneth, this family puts him ahead of the pack. But if he also works with Kalonzo, assuming Kalonzo leaves Oka, and Raila maintains his current 15% of Gema support, he will still be ahead, Raila that is. If Oka then picked Mudavadi as a flag bearer, with his populous Luhya vote, and if Mudavadi then picks Martha Karua as a running mate, What this could mean ultimately is that you may end up with a scenario where Raila and Mudavadi emerge as number 1 and 2 in the first round, with Ruto coming in third. In this way, Ruto may be locked out of the runoff. But still, even if Ruto comes second, in the runoff, a combined opposition would emerge triumphant against an incumbent Ruto. Ultimately, time will remain the bearer of truth. Now, we have a 3-part criteria with which we use to judge the headlines. We ask ourselves, are they topical or speculative, repetitive or groundbreaking, thoughtful or just plain lazy? To quickly repeat the headlines: Daily Nation, Mudavadi factor in Ruto Raila fallout. In the Standard, Iron Lady leads Mount Kenya in deal with Oka chiefs. In the Star, fresh twist as Oka plots new merger. And in the People Daily, dam scandal, Italian firm wants 80 billion shillings. Yeah.
I'm in love with the Daily Nation for some reason. The small bit I read, it was trying to talk about Ruto's jealousy after the 2007 delegates election that happened in ODM. Apparently, he wasn't happy that Raila had taken Mudavadi to become his running mate, despite Mudavadi being number 2 and Ruto a distant third. So he wanted to be number 2, yet he did not do as much work as Mudavadi.
Yeah, very typical
Very
of Ruto,
insightful, yeah.
and it tells us quite a lot about the character of the man. Sabia, what do you have to say?
Okay, maybe the Standard and the Star, they speak about Oka, but I still maintain that it's a 2-horse race. Ruto, Raila. If indeed there is a third party, it's coming just to escort the 2 horses. Yeah.
People Daily, dam scandal. This one reminds me of that Kalenjin elder who told us, Wali Gula. So the Standard and the Star introduced an interesting dimension, but and as much as I went into it, I still maintain it's early, it's speculative. So let's give it to the Daily Nation because it gives us the true colors of Ruto. Once again, let him keep revealing his true colors. And so with that, we give it to the Daily Nation and toss the rest. Now, on to our cartoons. We have a 3-part criteria which we use to judge cartoons. We ask ourselves, are they humorous or dry, satirical or pessimistic, effective, or just plain lazy? DK, what do we have?
I think Daily Nation, or would you go first?
No worries. With the Daily Nation, we have the caricature of Sonko holding a phone that is set to record a video. Public officials are running away from him. So this is in relation to what Sonko has been doing recently, releasing a series of videos that expose corrupt public officials. He vows to continue releasing more incriminating videos. This is also similar to what we have from the Star, whereby someone is inside Sonko's phone and airing. Inside someone's phone is Mike Sonko airing his dirty laundry online. Mike Sonko has in the recent past aired videos and messages that have shed a light in on the rotting institutions in the judiciary. So I say good for Sonko. He should continue with whistleblowing. Actually, the judiciary barring Sonko from releasing more of these tapes just raises suspicion on the judicial integrity of the courts. So good for him.
This is the most humorous thing I've seen this month, I think.
Yeah, and Sonko is at his most dangerous because he has very little to lose.
Yes.
Yeah. DK?
I think I'll go for the People Daily, and it's caricature, or rather cartoon, showing someone looking like a chocolate soldier. And he's saying, give way, here comes the general. He's the self-appointed general, Miguna, who is trying to come back to Kenya. And then to his neck is a big thing. I don't know whether it's a stone or something, written tough conditions, only all to the effect of the issues surrounding his comeback to Kenya, the conditions that he's had to bear with. So I did not like it, but I love it. I don't know. It gave me mixed emotions. I think it's old. I don't know why people are still talking about Miguna. I think he doesn't need all that audience by now.
And I'd like to observe that no one is holding that rope. It's tied to his own neck.
Yeah.
He's wearing it like a tie. So those tough conditions are self-imposed. Now, I'd like to quickly go to the Standard, when you have a caricature of a voter addressing the IEBC commissioners, and the voter is asking, voter registration, I know what's in it for me, but what's in it for you? And it's a very important question. It reminds me of a quote often attributed to Joseph Stalin. Whether it was him who said it, it's still a very apt quote. It is enough that the people know there was an election. The people who cast the votes decide nothing. The people who count the votes decide everything. And with that, this has been Fifth Estate Winning Headlines on a day when we had a winning headline from the Daily Nation and winning cartoon from the Daily Nation and the Star. We leave you with this quote from JFK. Too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Thank you and good night. Kindly don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're also on TV screens. Find us on Pine Free to Air, GoTV, and Star Times.
Good night.